the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EDtech, episode number 9, recorded Friday, October 19th, 2012. The Equal Time Extron Fanboy Hour. It is time for EdTech, your monthly roundup of technology managers from different various points in the education spectrum. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. Thank you so very much for joining us. With us this month, as always, is Greg Brown. He is at UCLA. Go Bruins.
Thank you, Tim. Greetings from sunny Southern California.
Yeah, it's 50 here. Let's go to the other extreme and talk to Scott Tyner, who is already under a foot of snow in Maine. And
now with earthquakes.
Now with earthquakes.
Yes, we had our whole house shake the other day. So, Greg, we're right there. We know exactly how you guys feel.
It's warmer here, though.
Yeah, if I had to choose the earthquakes and the snow or the earthquakes and the warm weather, yeah, I'm going to go with Greg. So, how are you, Mr. Tyner?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. Duck and roll or something. Last but not least, Matthew Silverman. He is also on the East Coast, but much farther south. He is at George Mason University. How are you, sir?
Doing well, and Fairfax is actually doing its best impression of sunny California right now at a nice 68 degrees.
Wow, very nice.
Actually, let me chime in here real briefly. We actually, on our web pages, I'm sure we all have the pictures of the happy, shiny students and the vague, positive, warm, fuzzy aphorisms that prove to prospective people how wonderful of a university our respective places are. We literally have a slogan on our homepage right now, ucla.edu, that says, 329 days of sunshine a year isn't a forecast, it's an outlook.
Wow.
Hey, so that's what you get from an elite university.
Jeez.
It's not just a forecast, it's an outlook.
And one has to wonder how many PR dollars went into making that happen.
That was at least a month of work and several committee meetings.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars to consultants. And
I think, unlike most cases, I'm not going to say anything at this point.
No, you can't.
Any further comments, perhaps being, shall we say, career limiting?
We're not jaded education workers, are we? Any stretch of the imagination. All right, let's get away from, career-ending conversation and talk about, Infocom. Hey, that's cool. We'll talk about them this month. A bunch of stories about tablets, everything from the big ones to the little ones. And also Extron, because, that's our favorite topic, it seems to be. But first, we're going to talk about another company that starts with E, Epson. This story comes from our buddies over at Rave Publication. Epson has debuted the $99 replacement lamp. Hello? Did anybody hear me? $100, all right? This comes to the world of, $300 to $600, sometimes $900 replacement lamps.
$250.
Well, I have paid $700 for a replacement lamp. So
recently,
the last 2 years.
Old xenon lamps.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, that was like the price of a small Yugo or something.
Well, see, it was a size one too.
Really?
So, okay, let's start with this, guys. First of all, Greg, is this a game changer, and would this make people want to go to Epson, or are we at the point where these suckers are better thrown away than anything? And yeah, it's $100 to keep a sub $1,000 projector going.
My first thought was that it was just finally confirmation of what we all suspected the last 10, 20 years, that the lamp manufacturers have been screwing us. Pardon my French. I think it's largely a bit of a non-issue. I mean, my newest small projector that I'm buying, which is like 3,500 lumens, I think, is coming with a 6,000 hour lamp. And hello, that's more than many of those are going to get in classroom service. I mean, I have some auditorium projectors that are, have cumulative times in them of 8,000 or 9,000 hours. But some of the smaller rooms, some of them are never going to have their lamp changed, and they're moving further and further in that direction all the time. So I think it's just a combination of they see the writing on the wall with the LED and the LCD. So yeah, I'm bah humbug.
Scott, is Greg right? Where we are at that point where it's going to be cheaper, and either that or you're going to take the projector out of service well before the lamp even gets out. So it's Epson being the first one to the table to kind of do a mea culpa. All right, we got to get it. If you do keep it beyond 6,000 hours, here's $100 lamp.
Yeah, as always, Greg is right.
Wow.
Wow.
I will send that to you in MP3, Greg.
Right?
It is. It's kind of silly, I think, really, to even go and say we're going to sell them for $100, because I'm thinking of even my busiest classroom. I might replace that lamp after 2 years. It probably goes at least 2.5 or 3 years. So maybe I replace a lamp one time in a projector's life cycle. So saving $200, off a lamp it's just not going to make me make a decision. I think, though, and this might be a bit of a theme we see today, I think that they're really aiming at the K-12 market, who is very afraid of buying something and then having to budget $300-$400. You buy something in K-12, that thing's lasting you 10 years. Yeah. I was in a school, in elementary school a few weeks ago. They had the original iMacs, like the blue ones. They still had those there.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I was just like, I don't even know how old this is. I mean, it's 10 years older. So, you buy a projector, that, it scares them away if they got to spend $400 on a lamp. So I think for us, it's nothing. I think that they might really be kind of marketing to that K-12 world who's really afraid of future expenses.
Well, and let me do my own little disclosure here. I saw one of the projectors that I use almost on a yearly basis on this list. So, I mean, the community college market may be, let's be honest, it's somewhere between K through 12 and the big 4-year universities, not only in the fact that we only do 2 years, but our budgets are also, slightly bigger than high school, but not quite as big as the university. So I'm looking at this going, so my $700 projector just went from being a total cost of ownership at around $1,200 to maybe, $800 now. But Matt is Scott has a point, though, where, you guys are going to be moving them out well before the lamps are even done.
I'm going to agree and disagree with Scott. I absolutely agree on the K-12 side. I mean, our environment, I guess, is a little bit more high utilization. We were actually just talking about this the other day, about 12,000 hours over the lifespan of a projector. And whatever the actual rating is, in reality, that works out to about the initial bulb plus 3 bulb replacements over its lifetime.
Okay.
So this is kind of real for us. I mean, the models they announced actually aren't ones we use, so that was a little bit disappointing. But I did notice that the model we did use went down from about $400 to about $300 a bulb. Given that the last bulb order we did, I think, was something like $52,000 for about half a year. This is a big deal. I mean, we have over 200 projectors installed. If we're saving, say, even $100 a projector a year in bulbs, that's huge. I mean, that's training dollars. That's something we can use that money elsewhere. And actually, one of the more amusing things that it just occurred to me is, I know there's a huge deal about the $99 price point, but I was surprised that they never announced back when the new Brightlink series came out. All of those are actually at $80 price points on their bulbs, and that was actually like 9 months ago. So sometimes PR departments work in very mysterious ways.
Well, $80 doesn't have quite the ring as $99 does.
Yes.
That's why everything is $9.99 or $99.99 and all that jazz. So
yeah.
Wow, Matt, those usages blow me away. So when you order a set of lamps, I mean, you're ordering 100, 150 lamps?
We generally do at this point to get some bulk discounts, 6-month orders of lamps. And I know when I was talking to one of our managers, and we have 3 campuses, but we have our largest campus orders lamps for everyone. He told me he did I think it was a $52,000 lamp order around May when we did our last lamp order. I mean, we budget roughly $2,000 a room per year in consumable costs between lamps, replacement parts, and things like that. Actually, it's $1,200. That included a little labor in there, so about $1,200 a year per room.
What's your runtime per projector per room roughly? Ours is 1,000 plus or minus. Less in smaller rooms, more in bigger rooms
per year. Wow.
We're over 2,000 hours runtime a year.
As we are, yeah. I mean, there are some of our projectors that I'll replace a lamp at least once every 6 months, and that's around 2,000 hours.
I mean, we're like I said, we're on a 5-year lifespan for projectors, and we were actually just doing some math yesterday on this, and we were estimating we'll run 12,000 hours in 5 years. Is kind of what we're doing our math based on.
Can I ask you a question real quick? And this is kind of a side question, but we did the same thing. We have a refresh cycle. Ours is actually at 7 years. How did you come up with 5 years?
5 years is our warranty on a projector.
Okay.
That makes too darn much sense.
It does.
We actually
that's logic there, boys.
It's a very simple cycle we have for all of our equipment. It's 5 years on projectors. We have 5-year warranties. We get the 3-year plus the 2-year extend. We do 5 years on computers, and we have them warranted all 5. And we were on 5 years for AV when we were analog, but when we moved over to digital and to deal with the higher cost structure, we moved to a 7-year cycle. Okay. We only, on that stuff, what is it now? Crestron is what? Is it 3 or 5 that we get? I forget what it is.
I think it's 5 if you're in education.
5, yeah. But,
if you're in an A+ program, yeah.
We haven't got past 5 yet, so I'll let you know in probably about 3 years if that 7-year was a good call or not.
Scott, do you guys have a refresh? Like, this is how often we automatically take out our projectors?
Yeah, we do everything based on a 7-year cycle for everything, and so we just take our entire installed base, divide by I'm embarrassed. What is it? 15% now. That's what's somewhere's around 15%, and that's our replacement. And so we keep lists, and we try and do it every 7 years. But frankly, if we see rooms that get used more, they might get bumped up in a room that's used less. But it's averaging on 7 years.
Okay, Greg, do you guys have one as well?
I'm going by makes and models. I have some. I'll throw them under the bus. Infocuses and some Proximas that, they have 2-year warranties, and barely any of them are making the 2-3 years without the yellow screen of death. Meanwhile, I have about 40 NEC GT6000s, which are all coming up on 8 years old, which, I'm sorry, I'm too busy replacing all the Proximas and Infocuses right now. The NECs will probably soldier on for a while longer and be my last 4x3 projectors.
Good night. Good for them.
I think I've had 2 of the 40 fail in 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Those are bulletproof projectors. I don't have a lot of NECs right now, but been very happy with those.
We've had similar results with EPS, and I'd say probably less than 10% of our install has had issues. And they have a great warranty program. I mean, within a week, we have a replacement projector.
Can I tell you, back? Because of that, Matt, we moved to all Epson, and so when we started this refresh program, we had some that we had buildings that have been put up the last 10 or 12 years. And they were installed. The entire building was the entire run was like Sanyo, or entire young run was Sony, and we had several of those dying, and in that time we started doing installs ourselves, and we started with I think the S3, the Epson S3. Good Lord, 6-7 years ago, and we just got to those that we've installed ourselves. we get in there and we start taking these out, and these suckers are still running. They're still on. They not literally, but they're still working. They're still soldering on. Now I've got 20 projectors that I can take anywhere as a replacement for a week, or to lend to someone who has an event off campus and they need a projector that they just need something to show on a screen somewhere. So you're right. We've had the same exact experience with Epson. So not that
I wanted to mention something else. So we're talking about lamp price, and there's something I just saw recently at a show, which was a laser LED hybrid projector, which I think we're going to see a lot more of, and I think it may be a game changer. Though,
explain that to me, because I'm not.
I to be honest, I have absolutely no idea how the technology works, but the short version is it's a sealed unit projector. There are no lamps, and they're rated at a 20,000 hour runtime.
Holy cow!
Yeah, supposedly it's not. You'll see a degrade, I think, in the first 1,000 hours of brightness, but it should be after that initial degrade, it should be a pretty steady brightness for the rest of the lifetime.
I believe they use LEDs for the red and the green because they're bright enough, and it uses a laser for the blue because blue LEDs aren't bright enough.
Huh. Okay.
And so, Matt, how do you think that? How do you think that
some
would
of
be
them have a
game
color
changer?
wheel in there?
Well, and with it's actually something, Scott, you brought up, which is the total cost of ownership equation. The price point I heard on one of these is about 2 to 2.5 times the price of what I'm paying now for a comparable traditional projector. And I was looking and I was saying, if I was looking at $400 a bulb, which is about what I used to be paying, apparently, I guess with this new bulb price change, we're now at $300 a bulb, which is cool. But at $400 a bulb, the increase I would pay on the front end is about equal with what would be my life cycle cost of that projector. So the idea of not ever having to replace a bulb is kind of a cool proposition.
Not only from a labor standpoint, but also from a downtime standpoint.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys have not hit upon the big one yet. What do all of these lamps have in common that a laser LED projector does not have? Mercury in the lamp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to become a great big green football at some point.
Well, it will be, and then that. Yes, it will be.
I was going to say green Nazis, but I figured that would just get me in trouble, so I figured that was the safer way.
Yeah.
And then you just said it anyway.
Sometimes I don't have that sense that way, do I?
You are from the West Coast, so
Yeah, well.
But no, that is a good point, though. Not only from a labor
it's all
standpoint.
The sunlight.
Is that what it is that makes your brain?
The sunlight and the granola.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be really interested to see that, because I think it's like I'm with Tim on the fact that for me it's not all about money, but if it's about there's no lamp to blow up in there's no lamp to die, I can put that in a room and go check on it 6 years later. That to me is the big thing, that it's the service aspect to the customer.
All right, I'm going to play devil's advocate and be the pessimist here. Okay, so what's going to go wrong with this sucker?
Well, it has a laser.
Oh.
I would think the biggest issue for me is going to be you spend all that money, and 4 years down the road the technology's changed, and so do you ever really get the 6, 7, 8 years that you want out of it? That would be my question.
Well, you do if you have a 7-year refresh cycle, man. I mean, if you're Matt, then no, you're going to get the 5 years out of it. But if you have a longer refresh cycle, either because of financial reasons or because that's what your college decides to do, then yeah, I mean, you'll squeeze every last bit out of that.
Right. Yeah.
We're only seeing a little brief moment in time as far as their development, too. I think this is all going to, increase in that direction and become even more of a game changer over the next few years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the big question is, does it become the second coming of LCOS, where one manufacturer brings it to market and that's it? Or does it really, go to town? And I think just going lamp is huge. And then we see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I do too. All right. You are listening to EdTech. Thank you so much for doing so. Greg Brown is with us, Scott Tyner, and Matthew Silverman. We're going to move on, though, to one of Greg's neighbors, the fine folks at Extron Electronics. Has a couple of different press releases and things of that nature this month. One, though, is it kind of hits us. Not really, but sort of. So bear with me for a second. They have a campus communication site now. And you know what? As much as we give Extron a hard time about, not coming to Infocom and other various things, not shipping products when they say they're going to, and all that kind of stuff, I think this is actually a thing that they've done rather well. I think it took some insight, it took some forethought, and I think that they have actually pulled off something here. Something I think that they have over their two closest competitors, which would be AMX and Crestron. Scott, what do you think about Extron's new campus communication site?
Well, I think that it is it's very targeted to K-12, and I think that that's very smart of Extron to do. And I think that one of the reasons we may sometimes get on Extron's case a little bit is that they really do, I think, have some of the K-12 market. They understand it well, and they focus a lot of time on it. So again, I got to put myself in the position of the person in a K-12 school who manages the technology, which means you do everything, and you're the only person who does it. And so now if I've got Extron coming in and telling me you can, monitor your AV stuff, you can manage your bell system, you can do announcements, you can do your intercoms with classrooms all through one system, that's really appealing to me. And I say that having worked in a public high school before and managing all those systems, and they were all different systems, and they were all very difficult to do. So for me, I think Extron has really hit the nail on the head here. And I think it was strategic of them, and I think it's going to be a hit, particularly compared to the other companies who will come into my college and try to get me to go get my facilities people on board with putting our heating systems. It's just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Who would do that?
But so this is all under the technology manager's control in a local school. This is stuff they already take care of. So I think it's a really well thought out product.
Matt, Scott makes a very, very good point. Because he's right. When you have one person, one decision maker, as it were, that's who they're talking to. So do you think that Extron has got a hit on their hands with this?
Yeah, I do. I've actually always thought Extron has, like Scott said, a better command of K-12. I think some of the other offerings in the K-12 space have been forced or awkward. On the other hand, I always love how Extron tries to push K-12 on higher ed, which it's just not the same. When it comes to their enterprise products, I actually think they understand the enterprise educational environment much better than if you look at RoomView or similar products. I've said it many times to Crestron. It's Global Viewer is something which makes sense if you're an educational administrator. So, again, what Scott said, extending that in the K-12 space just makes a whole heck of a lot of sense.
All right, Mr. Brown, they're your neighbors. You're right up the road. Is this something that they've done well and thought out, or is it just kind of a second thought to going after higher education guys?
Always something they've done very well. Probably the thing I will give them the most credit for is the way they sell to the education market. I mean, if you are any sort of an AV manufacturer and you want to sell into education, hey, just sit yourself down at the Extron website and take notes, because I think Extron caters better to the education market better than anybody else in the AV industry. And though all of us here at our colleges and universities, I mean, we can sit around and debate the finer points of Extron versus Crestron versus AMX all day long. and undoubtedly will. But you know, like you guys are saying, you know, for a primary or a secondary school district where it's, you know, one or a small group of tech guys and they're or girls, and they're overworked and underfunded, you know, with the people that Extron can the people and support and information and advice and guidance that Extron is just standing by to jump in and provide. You know, they're going to eat, no pun intended, they're going to eat a lot of people's lunch, are going to continue to eat a lot of people's lunches, particularly in the primary and secondary world.
Okay, so if that is the case,
and more power to them.
Yeah, more power to them.
This is their forte. Go for it. You guys do a great job at it.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask a business question. If that's the case, then why don't they focus on that and let that be their strong point and their strong suit, and not, you know, I guess step into other areas that maybe takes away from their focus? It's kind of like the same argument I had with Crestron and their shades. It's like, why are you doing that?
You know, I actually had a dream the other week that I was
this is going to be good.
Yeah.
I was reading an AV magazine, and Extron came out with a document camera.
Okay, you need some help.
Professional therapy.
Something.
Greg.
Wow.
Greg, just say no. Okay, man.
Gosh.
Yeah, boy. Oh, boy.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Tim. I think the answer there is that, you know, Extron for so long. I remember our integrator would always call Extron the glue to install.
And they were. I mean,
and that's what they were. But then I think that, you know, other companies in the industry started, you know, going after some of that glue, and so they started to stretch and figure out what else they needed to do. But I actually think that, you know, inside of Extron, they know what their goal is, and they know that K through 12 is where their bread is buttered. And so, yeah, they're still going to provide some of this glue, and they're still going to get, I mean, let's face it, they've got plenty of higher ed customers out there.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you know, and I also think that the two markets, K through 12 and higher ed, are different. How much communication, for example, do you have with K-12 people in your area? I'm imagining most of us not a lot. So it's not like we're in higher ed who might be frustrated with some of the stuff they do, you know, causing problems with their selling to K-12.
No.
So that's my take.
No, I'll just throw out there. I mean, maybe they have an internal plan. I'd just love to know what it is. I honestly have not got the direction they're going in. I mean, it really started with coming out with configurable control systems, and since then they just seem to stick their toe into markets but never really finish. I mean, they bought that high-end media distribution company but never really then did a lot with it. You know, XTP has kind of been, you know, slowly coming out, but it's not following industry trends like having, you know, integrated transmitters. So I love the fundamentals of what they do, but it just, I don't know where they're going with their product line. It just seems to be all over the place.
Well, and as quick as I will be to pile on to them for getting into every market, you know, maybe not document cameras, at least not yet. Of course, you know, maybe there's some Extron guy who's, you know, listening to this going, damn, they know.
We left one in a bar.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. But the thing is, everybody is doing it, and I'll fault them all for doing it. I mean, I was looking at, talking to my Crestron guy, looking at the speakers he was showing off at a small event recently. You know, it seems to be the in thing right now, and I think it offends all of our delicate sensibilities to some extent. Although, you know, I will give them props for you can do some very sophisticated stuff with Extron stuff, and small plug. One of the folks we're trying to get maybe for not the Tech Managers Symposium here in Orlando, but potentially for Vegas in a year and a half is a friend of mine from USC here, University of Southern California. And as much as it pains me to give props to USC because that's a little bit of a rivalry here in this town, they have a global viewer enterprise system that is just hooked up as part of this amazing monitoring system where he was showing this off in the AV for Education Power of AV for Education event in San Diego the other day that I was at, and he's there wirelessly on his iPad and he's scrolling through live images in all of the classrooms, and this is how they do their much of their monitoring and troubleshooting, and just scrolling through all of these pictures after hundreds of pictures of all of their classrooms live. Wow. All of this being part of Enterprise and some other programs too, but just a really amazing setup. So if you get into the programs there, into that program, you can do some pretty sophisticated stuff.
Yeah, Greg, I think what you've hit on is if you're going to do it right. Global Viewer, I've said this before, even on this show today, is an example of where Extron did it right. Mm-hmm. As much crap as I gave Extron for getting into speakers when they got into speakers, they've done speakers right. I buy a ton of them. Crestron, on the other hand, is an example of, I think, doing speakers wrong. And I think it's as they keep on adding these little things, if they diminish the brand, because, I go back when I started in this industry, I wanted an Extron switcher in every system I did because I knew I wasn't going to have a problem. And as, a lot of these mega AV companies have started branching out into a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I'm not sure if I feel the brand gets diminished because they release crap, to be honest.
Well,
yeah.
Let me say, maybe focus that point down a little bit further. It diminishes the product if they turn out crap. If they do it right, though, it helps build the product. With that,
absolutely. That's it. Thank
right.
you. Yes, I'm not sure where I was going with that.
Well, no, and you make a good point, though. Here's the thing: I have the same issues that Greg has with Crestron speakers. Not that they're bad or good or different. I don't think of Crestron and the speakers that I've heard are not, oh my gosh. So I don't think of them when I think of speakers. Oddly enough, I've had the same experience with Extron speakers as you have, Matt, and they are really, really good. Now, there are some of them that I'm not crazy about, but for the most part, those ceiling speakers that they turn out, and even the surface mounted ones, have been a really good product for the price point.
We use a lot of them too, and one of the reaction of my guys here was that, hey, they clearly looked at the install end of things and how everybody else was doing their installs and came up with a speaker that came with all of the parts and was well thought out as far as the install side of things too.
Yeah.
So if you're going to come out with a Me Too product, I mean, you've got to sit down and look at the competition and not just say how can we make one too, but okay, here's what's out here. Can we make something better? And I think in most cases they've done that. I'm not sure that's something everybody thinks about.
Well, yeah, and it depends on the product too. I mean, that's the one thing that, and I don't know if it's engineering. I'm not that smart. One thing that they still keep, it seems like they keep getting hung up on, is this digital conversion. They can do analog switchers all day long, and they do them really well. It's this move to digital that it seems to be their hang up, and I'm not quite sure why. So I don't know. All right, let's move on to somebody else before we start bashing them, because I don't want to do that. A story out of Gizmodo.
Yeah, we've loved on Extron for probably longer than in the history of this show.
I believe that is true. So
all clearly having a weak moment here.
Warm fuzzies or something. So Apple's bread and butter for the last 40 years, let's say, 30 years, sorry, has been their strategy, at least in the very beginning, was to get into the classroom and to get our product in the hands of the youth, and then when they grow up, they're going to want to use nothing but that. That didn't quite turn out the way they wanted, and so Amazon is going to try to do that same thing, sort of. According to this Gizmodo article, Amazon is getting Kindles and Kindle Fires into the hands of the young, into the classrooms. And the reason we talk about this is because we've got a couple different stories about tablets in the classroom this week. Matt, is this something that, just like 30 years ago, was a great idea on paper, but is it what's going to carry the Kindle or the Kindle Fire to prominence over the iPad, or is it just, Amazon trying to get a foothold in education?
Well, it worked really, really well for Apple, I guess, back in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, we all remember, the Apple, and I remember what was the little program with the turtle? What was it, Logo or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
Logo.
Yeah. And there's definitely something about getting your product in front of an impressionable youth. So I think if they can get it in, right or wrong, it'll help them in the long term. But they definitely have to view it as, that long-term strategy. I don't really know, whether or not it's going to pay off in the short term.
Greg, is this something that is, like Matt points out, kind of worked for Apple? Is that what Amazon's doing here?
Yeah, in a word.
World's shortest show. Yes, no, maybe.
I don't know. It's stories like this that just convince me that every day I'm just taking another step on the inexorable march to being the cynical old tech guy here. And it's because it's like I read this and it's like, yeah, you all wake me when you decide what you want to do. It's.
Get off of my lawn.
Call me when the dust settles. Great. Competing with Apple, more power to you. Great. Let's see what happens. I think. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for that insight, Craig.
Wow. Okay. So Scott, we'll move on. We'll move on then. Scott, let's talk about that, and then let's talk about the very next story, which is the apparently the inevitable iPad Mini. Is that what Apple's doing here to kind of compete with Amazon and the Fire, and taking something that I think works personally because I have one, and making it smaller for smaller hands and this, that, and the other? I mean, what is this going on here?
Well, so I'll start with the Gizmodo article, and for me, I mean, I think that tablets in the classroom are the future. I think that it doesn't matter how you get them into a classroom, or whether you give them free or whatever you want to do. I think the real issue, whether it's K through 12 or higher ed, is making it really easy to use and manage. And I'm not sure that the Kindle is there yet. I know they refer to some places here about the Kindle to do that. My daughter's got a Kindle, for example, and there's no video out options on it. So for me, what's the use of that in a classroom? We've been using AirPlay a little bit here at Bates. That's got some just enormously powerful potential. So moving on though to the iPad Mini. Listen, to me, this wouldn't have happened if Steve Jobs was alive. I think that, in my opinion, who knows? Maybe we'll find out that Steve Jobs planned this years ago. But to me, it's Apple chasing somebody, and Apple's always led everybody. And so for me, I don't know. I'm like, what's the point of the iPad Mini? My iPad is fine the size it is. I don't get it, and I think that it's a different strategy than Apple's ever taken with anything.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to say I'll kind of disagree about the I don't get it part. I was a very early adopter to PDAs. I'm not sure if we actually remember that term anymore, but
no, brother, you could not pull the Palm Pilot from my cold dead hands, but I'm with you.
And the one that really got me, and I had like 3 of them, was the compact iPad. I don't know if anyone remembers that. And that was kind of in about 6-inch, maybe close to 7-inch. I don't know. With the case on it, the damn thing weighed a ton. But it was neat. And when I finally got my iPhone, I'm like, this is cool, and I used it a lot. And then I got my iPad, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And I realized I really stopped using my iPhone as an information device because it was just too small. And I haven't upgraded yet from a 3GS, so I don't have the Retina or anything like that, and maybe that's half the problem. But I've seen a lot of people, and I remember this for me, it'd be really nice to have that smaller device, smaller than an iPad, but that is purely a data device. And maybe it's me being anti-convergence, and I like having devices which do one thing really, really well, rather than try to do a lot of things really, really poorly. And I think it has a market. I mean, I think there'll be people. I mean, 7 inches becomes the type of device that you actually carry with you. And it goes from being kind of maybe what you're taking notes in a meeting to being your GPS in your car to I don't know what. But it's a neat size, and I think actually some of the Android and stuff in that space is done pretty well as well.
And see, I'm with Scott on this. I don't know. I think they're chasing somebody. I don't know who they're chasing. Maybe they're chasing Amazon. I don't know. I don't see that necessarily, but I would somewhat agree. Where this is this is them chasing somebody or something.
Well, and I think the thing is that they've already got the touch. And they've got the iPhone, and now they've got the iPad. And I guess it's like, to me, the 7-inch or the 9-inch, it's not enough of a difference in between there. I think that I would love to have everything in one device. I don't like carrying more than one device.
Okay.
So if my iPhone did everything in the world, that would just be fantastic. I don't know that 7-inch is like, oh, now I'm going to carry this around when I wouldn't have. But again, that's what these guys have got, marketing firms that they hire, and they do focus studies and all that stuff. So I guess they know what they're doing.
You think?
Yeah, right. They've made a little more money in their lives than I have.
Well, they've also. I mean, let's be honest here. The last time Steve Jobs left, God rest his soul, he had to come back to save it. So I'm not saying that Tim Cook doesn't know what he's doing. It's just I don't know what he's doing.
I love the classic things. I remember when I was working at a private school here in Maine, and those first iMacs came out, and they didn't have floppy drives, and the world flipped out. What? These guys are idiots. What are they doing? There's no floppy drive. And within like a year, there were no floppy drives anywhere. People just stopped using them. And that was this example of Apple leading rather than following. And so, I wish I'd still see them doing something like that.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Maybe you and I are wrong, and they know what they're doing, and I don't know. So, all right.
I think it's probably an experiment to some extent to see. I don't get the impression that we know, what the perfect size for tablets is yet. If there even is a perfect size. But I think we're all sort of like, well, I might like one smaller, I might like one bigger. It's like this porridge is too hot and this porridge is too cold.
Gosh, I wish I could think of the show I watched, and this was the perfect size for a tablet, where they put something on the table and it projected a keyboard on the table, and you could type right on any table. It was like a holographic keyboard.
I think we talked about that at some point.
All right, back to the Palm, the PDA universe. I had a Palm that you could have an adapter that did that too. It was some sort of captive. Oh, good Lord, how did it work? I forgot how it worked. But it was a keyboard image on the table.
Right. Well, and so, I think that's where, that'd be really, and again, who knows, maybe in 5 years they will, but it'd be really cool if there was just something really different about these things now. That's the thing, like all of these tablets are essentially the same.
Well, it's all a personal sort of thing, for further solidifying my position as the Luddite of the group. I have a Droid 3, which is a slider smartphone with the physical keypad underneath, because I like a real keypad. It's like, what a novel concept.
You had a sidekick, didn't you?
Come clean.
I actually had one of those old Sharp or Casios.
Wow.
Casios, the fold open with a little LCD screen. Yeah, I still have it someplace.
Wow.
Well, Scott, I was going to say to what you were bringing up, though, which is they're all the same. And I actually, the reason I'd like to see an Apple 7-inch is because the differentiator that I'm seeing is the apps. And right now, and I've not really got into Android, but I have a sizable investment in iTunes apps. So being able to take what I already own and use it in a form factor, which I think would be better for me, is kind of where I'm looking.
And I think that's a solid point, Matt. Except that if some of that is the fact that Apple has a running head start, that's why that's where the ecosystem is, right?
Oh yeah.
I think the more that Android becomes ubiquitous and they get a bigger market share, there's going to be a point there where there's going to be as many or more of Android developers than there's Apple, and some of that is going to be going to these guys that you have invested your hard-earned money into the Apple version and say, hey, you have an Android, can I get that at like a discount or maybe at no cost to me or something like that? I don't know.
Well, and actually to help us transition to our next story, don't count Microsoft out.
Very well done.
Yes, thank you.
That was almost like professional.
It was.
I actually think we will be surprised by how quickly with Windows 8 we see adoption in the tablet space. I won't say the same for the rest of the Windows 8 space, but I think there's a lot of people, particularly your traditional enterprise people, your people who are just Microsofties, who really will adopt the, I don't know if it's going to be the Surface, but one of the Windows 8 tablets.
Are you saying from an education or enterprise standpoint, or just overall people in general?
I think, and I may get bashed about this, but there is somewhat of a silent majority of people who really do enjoy a Microsoft operating environment. And it's what they know. And Microsoft has frankly sucked at the tablet game up until now. But their new interface is actually much more about the tablet, frankly, than the enterprise. And I could also see a lot of enterprise people saying, hey, I have all these custom apps which we've developed in a Windows environment. With a little bit of portability, I can now move them into a mobile situation. So they can start issuing enterprise mobile devices. And while I know BYOD is a huge thing, I know there's a lot of companies, not necessarily higher education, but corporate, who would definitely say, I just want to hand you your tablet and be done with it. I don't want you to pick your own.
And see, I think that there's even from a education standpoint, there are those CTOs that would rather hand you your own. Well, that BYOD is driving them nuts.
And I think we talked about this on an earlier show, but Seton Hall, got in bed with Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear like their 6-month or 12-month case study on how their Windows tablet launch and all their Windows 8 stuff has worked out for them.
I would too. Yeah. And there is something to be said for Microsoft, at least from that aspect. Actually, if you believe the Steve Jobs book, we can thank Microsoft for the iPad in a weird roundabout way. If you haven't read the book, the story goes there's a Microsoft employee that invited Steve Jobs and Bill Gates to dinner and was going on and on about this tablet that they were developing, and that Apple should partner with Microsoft and and isn't this stylus great? And Steve Jobs said, screw that. You don't need no stinking stylus. Let me show you how it's really done. And there's the iPad and the iPhone. So you should read the book, though. It's very fascinating. So we're going to kind of wrap this up, guys, with a couple really kind of interesting stories. One is about our buddy Matt Silverman. But first, Infocom has a new CEO. Yay! I'm going to butcher his name just like I did last week. I apologize. David.
Cue the Hail to the Chief clip.
David Labuskis?
Labusky.
Thank you. Labusky. He was named the new Infocom CEO. Anything here, guys? Good, bad, indifferent? Yay, we have a new leader an illustrious leader.
I actually got to meet him very briefly at the Infocom 100. Personally, he seems like just a great guy. What's really neat is you look at his background. While he's been in the AV profession for a while, he's actually very much entrenched in IT as well, both with Bixby and TIA. And I know from the people on the standard side, he's actually been a volunteer with a number of Infocom standards committees, including the upcoming one on unified automation and control.
Cool.
He's definitely someone who I think is going to lead us where we need to go.
Very cool. Yeah, I think having that IT background is certainly going to help.
I think that's a good direction. Yeah.
I like the fact that in his official announcement, talking about different groups in Infocom, he actually recognized technology managers. So I thought that was it shows some progress we've made in the organization. And
well, he's not officially part of Infocom yet, right? So he can still do that.
Well, not until January 1st. I mean, well, no, actually, was it next month? This month?
Then he'll forget all the technology.
Yeah, he's starting his onboarding end of November, I think.
Greg's just jaded and.
Yeah, geez, come on, Greg.
All right, a couple weeks ago.
Who, me?
Back in Vegas, thankfully, there was a conference there, and it was called the CCUMC, and our buddy, Mr. Matthew Silverman, presented at there. Also, just kind of give us a heads up what CCUMC is, what the event was, and how people can get involved. The website, by the way, because we'll put a link for this as well, is ccumc.org.
CCUMC is the consortium of college and university media centers. And it's a really great group of folks who do what we do. They provide technology support, particularly audiovisual support, to colleges and universities. I'd say there's three main demos that I've seen in the group. It's technology managers, it's library media folks, and it's also instructional designers. And it's a really interesting, I guess, group of folks because you get to look at the same issue from many different perspectives. A lot of great presentations on audiovisual management were there. A lot of conversation actually about copyright. That's a very hot topic right now. And really, it's just a good opportunity. It's mostly, I'd say, management and even, some higher level positions getting a chance to come together and talk. And if your university isn't affiliated with it, I strongly, strongly encourage everyone to take a look at becoming a member. And they have a great listserv, which is a closed listserv, which has some of the frankest, even franker for those of people who are on AV1. I've actually seen some really good, just honest conversations there. So it's a great organization to be a part of. They have a annual conference every year in the fall. There's a webinar in the spring. This spring, it's actually going to be on mobile devices, and it's going to be 2 university case studies, so that should be interesting. And there's a lot of other good stuff that's starting to go on with them as well.
Very cool. All right, and last but not least, you have a new website, my friend.
Yes, I do.
Actually, a mutual friend of ours, Chris Netto, tweeted it before you were ready for him to do so. But it is called the AV, the Audiovisual Body of Knowledge, and kind of tell people where they can find it and what it is.
Sure. The website is avbok.com, avbok. For those who are not familiar, that's kind of like PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge. This is a product that came out of actually last year's CCUMC conference where everyone kept on asking me, well, where do you get your resources or where do you get your links? And so what I did is I put together, I launched it actually as one of my presentations this year at CCUMC, It's basically a resource site. The idea is if you need to find something related to audiovisual, some training, a trade association, some research, hopefully as we start growing the site, it'll be available to you. Right now we have about 100 links on the site. We also have a human-curated news feed where people are tagging AV stories of interest. And the big part about this is it's really a completely human-curated site. So we're not doing automated link posts. Someone will actually make sure what's going in there is of value. It's also something that I'd really love to open up to the community if people are interested in helping to grow this site. We'd love to have people aboard. Right now it's myself and B. Bagby from Virginia Western Community College who are kind of getting it started. But I hope over the next year to really grow it and be a great resource for the industry.
Very cool. All right, that's avbok.com, avbok.com. I think that's going to do it for us this month, guys. With us, as always, has been Greg Brown from UCLA. How can people find out about you or follow you or find out more about you?
Let's see. Twitter is AV Greg. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I am a blogger on Infocom's All Voices website.
Yay! Also with us is Scott Tyner. He is from Bates College. Tell people how they can find out about you and more about you, sir.
Well, despite the fact that Greg's the Luddite here, I'm not. You can't follow.
That's
you can't
true.
Follow me. I'm here in Maine if you need me.
Oh my gosh!
Should we get our sled dog team and come after
Send
you?
a raven.
Yes, because the winter has come.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm on book 2 now.
You don't need a sled dog for another month. You can still get to him via snowmobile right now.
No, I am on LinkedIn. You can.
There you go, LinkedIn. There we have something that we can connect with Mr. Tyner. So, and last but not least, our superstar of the group is Matthew Silverman. How can people find you beyond the avbok.com?
You can find me on Twitter. It's msilverm. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, and also my, I guess, kind of blog, which really needs some new content. It's nextedutech.com.
Very cool. All right, my name is Tim Albright. If you'd like to follow me and my stuff, it is TD Albright, Tim David Albright on Twitter. But more importantly for me and everybody here at AVNation, please go by the website, avnation.tv. avnation.tv. You'll find podcasts like this one, only with different emphases. We have
only better,
huh?
Only better, right?
Better, different. Same difference.
Actually, I have been getting people on LinkedIn just occasionally saying, "Hey, I heard the show and I really loved it." So,
very cool.
Yes, thank you for listening, all 37 of you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, there's the live staging and rental show, which is called The Live Life. We have one about DIY, which incidentally this month they're talking about beer. So if you like beer, you should listen to it. Actually, talking about how to home brew and stuff like that. So yeah, we have various different ones, and then of course we have our weekly, which is called AV Week. So check it out if you would. AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening to EdTech.